3 months had passed since the meeting at the Galactic Council. Most of the alien representatives had forgotten about Elder Vexithara's warning. They went back to their home worlds and continued their normal lives. The humans were just another young species trying to find their place in the galaxy. Nothing to worry about. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was working the night shift at Research Station New Geneva. The station floated in empty space between two star systems, far from any planets or major shipping routes. It was a quiet job, perfect for studying the deep regions of space where strange things sometimes happened. Lisa had been a space explorer for 15 years. She had seen solar flares, black holes, and even the birth of new stars. She thought she had seen everything the universe could show her. She was wrong. "Captain," called Dr. Peter Hayes from his science station, "I'm picking up some unusual readings from Sector 7. You might want to look at this." Lisa floated over to Peter's workstation. The doctor was young and still excited about every new discovery. Most of the time, his unusual readings turned out to be nothing important. Space rocks or old pieces of junk from passing ships. "What do you have, Peter?" she asked, looking at the display screen. "These energy signatures don't make sense," Peter said, pointing at the strange patterns on his monitor. "It's like something is there, but also not there at the same time. The computer says the readings are impossible." Lisa frowned. In 15 years of space exploration, she had learned that when computers said something was impossible, it usually meant something very dangerous was happening. "Show me the long-range sensors," she said. Peter switched to a different view. The screen showed empty space, just like it should. But the energy readings were getting stronger. Something was definitely out there, even if they could not see it. "Run." "A full spectrum analysis," Lisa ordered, "and send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them we might have a situation here." While Peter worked on his analysis, Lisa stared out the observation window. Space looked normal. Stars twinkled in the distance. Everything was peaceful and quiet. But she had learned to trust her instruments more than her eyes. 20 minutes later, Peter made a sound of surprise. "Captain, you need to see this." The computer finally figured out what we're looking at. Lisa hurried back to his station. The screen now showed a three-dimensional image of the space around them, but this image was different. It showed multiple layers of reality, like looking at several photographs stacked on top of each other. "According to this," Peter said, his voice shaking slightly, "there are objects out there that exist in more than one dimension at the same time. That should be impossible with our current understanding of physics." Before Lisa could respond, the space in front of their station began to change. Reality seemed to bend and twist, like looking at the world through water. Then, massive ships began to appear. The vessels were unlike anything in the galactic database. They were black as empty space and shaped like giant daggers. But the strangest thing about them was how they seemed to flicker in and out of existence. One moment, they were solid objects. The next moment, they were like shadows or ghosts. "How many ships?" Lisa asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "I count 50 so far," Peter replied, "but the sensors keep giving different numbers. It's like they're not all here at the same time." Lisa activated the emergency communication system. "This is Research Station New Geneva to all ships and stations. We have unknown vessels appearing in Sector 7. Ships appear to be using technology beyond our current understanding, requesting immediate assistance." The response came quickly from Admiral Marcus Wright on the heavy cruiser UES Defiance. "New Geneva, this is Admiral Wright. We are en route to your position. Can you identify the unknown vessels?" "Negative, Admiral," Lisa replied. "These ships are not in any database. They appear to be using some form of dimensional technology." "Dimensional technology?" Wright's voice sounded confused. "That's theoretical science fiction. Are you sure about what you're seeing?" Before Lisa could answer, one of the strange black ships moved toward their station. As it got closer, Lisa could see that it was enormous. The ship was easily 10 times larger than the biggest vessel in the human fleet. "Admiral," she said into the communicator, "I'm sending you our sensor data. You can see for yourself." On his ship several hours away, Admiral Wright watched the impossible readings appear on his screens. He had been in the Space Navy for 30 years and had never seen anything like this. "Communications officer," he said to Lieutenant Tom Anderson, "send a priority message to all Galactic Council forces. Tell them we have unidentified ships using unknown technology. Request immediate backup." The message went out across the galaxy in seconds. On hundreds of worlds, alien military commanders looked at the reports and felt confused. What kind of technology could exist in multiple dimensions at once? On the Kethmori homeworld, Elder Vexithara was in her crystal garden when the emergency alert reached her. She read the report about dimensional ships and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. "No," she whispered to herself. "It cannot be them. They disappeared eons ago." She immediately contacted her aide, a younger Kethmori named Sektar. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," she ordered. "Tell them that the Void Devourers have returned." Sektar's crystal body flickered with surprise. "Elder, the Void Devourers are just a legend, stories told to frighten young ones." "They are not legends," Vexithara said grimly. "They are the reason my people learned to fear the impossible. Send the message immediately." Back at Research Station, New Geneva, more black ships continued to appear. The space around the station was now filled with the ghostly vessels. Lisa counted over 200 ships, but the number kept changing as more flickered into existence. "Captain," Peter said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from inside those ships. The reading suggests some form of life, but not like anything we know." "What do you mean?" "The life signs don't match any known species. It's like they're alive, but also something else. Something that feeds on energy itself." Lisa felt a cold, fear growing in her stomach. "What kind of energy?" Peter checked his readings again. "All kinds. Heat energy, electrical energy, and..." He paused, looking confused. "Life energy. Captain, I think these things eat living beings." The largest of the black ships suddenly moved toward a nearby star system. Lisa watched in horror as the ship seemed to swallow the light from the star itself. The star grew dimmer and dimmer until it finally went out completely. "Admiral Wright," she called into the communicator, "you need to get here faster. These ships just extinguished an entire star." Wright's voice came back immediately, filled with disbelief. "That's impossible, Captain. Stars don't just go out." "Sir, I'm sending you the visual data right now. See for yourself." On the UES Defiance, Admiral Wright watched the recorded images of a star dying in minutes instead of billions of years. His hands shook as he realized what they were facing. "All ships," he broadcast to the human fleet, "increase speed to maximum. We're dealing with something beyond our understanding." But the black ships were not waiting. They began to spread out across the galaxy, moving toward populated systems. As they traveled, stars went dark behind them, leaving nothing but empty void where once there had been light and life. The Galactic Council received thousands of emergency messages in the first hour. Ships were disappearing. Entire space stations were going silent. And everywhere the black ships went, they left behind only darkness. Admiral Wright arrived at Research Station New Geneva just in time to see one of the alien vessels approach a planet in a nearby system. The world was home to 3 billion beings from the peaceful Keltaran species. "Captain Rodriguez," he said over the communicator, "evacuate your station immediately. We're pulling back to Earth." "Admiral, what about the Keltaran planet? We can't just leave them." Wright watched helplessly as the black ship reached the planet. In minutes, the entire world went dark. 3 billion lives snuffed out like candles in the wind. "There's nothing we can do," he said quietly. "These things are beyond anything we've ever faced. We need to warn Earth and hope someone can figure out how to stop them." As the human ships retreated toward their home system, the black vessels continued their advance. Behind them, the galaxy grew darker as stars and worlds fell silent one by one. The Void Devourers had returned after sleeping for millions of years, and they were hungry. Admiral Catherine Bell arrived at Unity Station with an escort that made the Zephyrians visibly uncomfortable. Her Marines wore power armor that was burned and scratched from recent combat. Their weapons showed signs of heavy use, and their eyes held the hard look of soldiers who had seen real war. Bell herself was a veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts. She was shorter than the aliens, but carried herself with an authority that needed no technology to enhance it. When she walked into the conference room, everyone could feel the difference between her and the exploration crew they had been dealing with. "Apologies for the delay, Madam President," Admiral Bell reported. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of someone who made life and death decisions every day. The Devourer cleanup took longer than expected. Their final stronghold required significant persuasion to surrender. Veltar watched Admiral Bell with new attention. His wind chime voice had lost much of its earlier confidence. "Admiral Bell, we have heard reports of your recent activities. We had not realized that humanity was actively engaged in military campaigns." "Military campaigns?" Bell's laugh was sharp and completely without humor. "High Navigator, humanity has been fighting for survival since we first looked up at the stars. The universe isn't as peaceful as your protected space might suggest." She activated a portable holographic projector that showed recent battle footage from the Proxima system. The images were brutal and clear. Human ships, smaller and apparently outgunned, engaged massive biomechanical creatures in running battles across asteroid fields and planetary rings. The Zephyrians watched in stunned silence as human vessels used tactics that were both innovative and ruthless. Ships would use asteroids as cover, then emerge to strike at enemy weak points. Human fighters swarmed around larger enemy vessels like angry insects, hitting them with precision strikes that caused massive explosions. "The Devourers were an old species," Bell continued, her tone never changing from professional calm. "They had been consuming worlds for thousands of years. They controlled 17 star systems and had technology we're still trying to understand." The battle footage showed creatures that looked like living ships, massive things that seemed to grow new parts as they fought. They fired weapons that turned matter into energy and back again. Their shields could absorb entire nuclear explosions without damage. "When we made first contact, they responded by sending a scout fleet toward Earth," Bell explained. 37 ships, each one the size of a small city. They arrived at our outer colonies and began converting everything into raw materials for their war machine. The images changed to show the aftermath of Devourer attacks. Entire space stations reduced to component atoms. Colonies where millions of people had lived, now empty except for strange growths that pulsed with alien life. "So we went to Proxima and removed them," Bell said simply. "All of them." Dr. Peterson stepped forward with technical readouts that made the Zephyrians lean back in their chairs. "Our weapons development focuses on penetrating advanced defensive systems and neutralizing technologically superior opponents. We've had to be creative when facing enemies with better resources than us." The data showed human weapons that worked in ways the aliens had never imagined. Missiles that could think and adapt during flight. Energy beams that grew stronger the more armor they hit. Bombs that created miniature black holes to destroy targets from the inside. But it wasn't just the weapons that shocked the Zephyrians. It was the tactics. Humans fought like they had nothing to lose and everything to prove. They took risks that would terrify most species. They turned every disadvantage into an advantage through sheer stubbornness and creativity. "Your people attack enemies stronger than themselves?" Arimel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our people attack enemies that threaten Earth," Admiral Wright corrected. "It doesn't matter how strong they are." Bell activated another display showing the final battle at the Devourer homeworld. The human fleet, outnumbered 5 to 1, had, systematically destroyed an enemy that had ruled 17 star systems. The footage showed human ships deliberately ramming enemy vessels when their weapons ran out of ammunition. The last Devourer stronghold was a living planet, Bell explained. It had been consuming other worlds for so long that it was the size of a gas giant. Our conventional weapons couldn't scratch it. The display showed the final moments of the battle. A human ship, heavily damaged and running on emergency power, flew directly into the heart of the living planet. The explosion that followed lit up the entire star system. Captain Rodriguez and his crew of 200 volunteers ended a threat that had been growing for millennia, Bell said quietly. They saved Earth and probably dozens of other worlds the Devourers would have consumed. The silence in the room was complete. The Zephyrians stared at the humans with a mixture of respect and horror. These weren't the primitive, peaceful species they had expected to guide and protect. These were veterans of wars that would give nightmares to most civilizations. Veltar's elegant features showed the first genuine emotion he had displayed since arriving. High Navigator Veltar to Zephyrian Fleet Command, he spoke into his communication device. Request immediate consultation regarding species reclassification. Humanity appears to be significantly more advanced in military capabilities than initial assessments indicated. President Rodriguez leaned forward slightly. The balance of power in the room had shifted completely. High Navigator, we appreciate your offer of protection and guidance. However, as you can see, humanity has developed its own methods for dealing with galactic threats. Perhaps we should discuss a partnership between equals rather than a stewardship arrangement. The change in Veltar's posture was obvious to everyone. Where he had initially spoken down to humanity as promising children, he now regarded the human delegation with the careful attention reserved for potentially dangerous equals. Your species is remarkable, he admitted. We have never encountered a civilization that actively seeks out and destroys threats rather than avoiding them. We don't look for fights, Admiral Bell replied. But when something threatens Earth or humanity, we end it. Permanently. RML was studying the technical data with obvious fascination and concern. Your weapons are designed to kill things stronger than you are. This is completely outside our experience. Most species in the galaxy either avoid conflict or surrender when faced with superior force, Quindar added. You seem to view superior force as a challenge to overcome. Admiral Wright nodded. That's a fair assessment. Humans don't surrender easily. We tend to get stubborn when someone tries to push us around. The negotiations that followed were completely different from what the Zephyrians had originally planned. Instead of offering guidance to a primitive species, they found themselves negotiating with battle-tested veterans who had proven they could handle galactic threats on their own. We would be honored to establish formal diplomatic relations, Veltar said carefully. Perhaps we could share information about other potential threats in this region of space. That would be useful, President Rodriguez agreed. We're always interested in learning about new problems that might need solving. The way she said solving made it clear that humanity's definition of problem solving might be more permanent than most species were comfortable with. Admiral Bell's final comment summarized the new reality perfectly. We didn't reach the stars to hide behind someone else's protection. We came out here to stand on our own, and we're quite good at removing anything that suggests otherwise. As Veltar later reported to his superiors, recommendation, full alliance, status with immediate effect. These humans fight like they have something to prove. We do not want them proving it against us. The Zephyrians had come expecting to find grateful children. Instead, they found the galaxy's newest apex predators, and those predators were very interested in making friends with anyone who treated them as equals. The emergency meeting room beneath the Pentagon was filled with the best minds on Earth. General Amanda Foster stood at the front of the room, looking at screens that showed the advancing darkness across the galaxy. Entire star systems were going out like lights being turned off one by one. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, We have 72 hours before these void devourers reach our outer colonies. Every major alien fleet in the galaxy has tried to stop them. They all failed. Dr. Richard Stone raised his hand. He was the lead scientist on the project and had been studying the alien technology for years. General, we've analyzed the battle. Recordings from the Galactic Defense Forces. The aliens tried to fight these things like a normal enemy. They used energy weapons, missiles, and kinetic bombardments. Everything passed right through the Void Devourer ships. Why? Asked Colonel Stephen Murphy, who commanded Earth's Special Forces. What makes these ships so different? Dr. Nancy Clark from the Terraforming Division pulled up a holographic display. The Devourers exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. When you fire a weapon at them in our dimension, they simply shift most of their mass into a different reality. The weapon hits nothing but empty space. General Foster nodded grimly. So conventional weapons are useless. What do you suggest? We stop thinking conventionally, said Dr. Stone. The aliens have been using the same basic military tactics for millions of years. Energy weapons, physical projectiles, force shields. They're trying to fight a multidimensional enemy with single-dimension thinking. A young engineer named Kevin Barnes spoke up from the back of the room. What if we could build weapons that exist in multiple dimensions too? If we can't bring them into our reality, maybe we can follow them into theirs. Dr. Clark shook her head. The energy requirements would be enormous. We don't have the power sources for that kind of technology. Actually, said Dr. Stone slowly, we might. Remember the quantum experiments we've been running with the alien power cores we salvaged? We've been trying to understand how they work, but maybe we've been looking at it wrong. He brought up new data on the holographic display. The alien power sources don't generate energy. They tap into the space between dimensions. That's how they get such incredible power output from such small devices. General Foster leaned forward. Are you saying we can build weapons that work in multiple dimensions? I'm saying we can build ships that work in multiple dimensions, Dr. Stone replied. But it's going to require every piece of alien technology we've ever collected, and we'll have to modify it in ways that would probably horrify the aliens who built it. Colonel Murphy stood up. How long do we have to make this work? 72 hours, General Foster repeated. Can it be done? Dr. Stone looked around the room at his fellow scientists and engineers. Ma'am, if we were any other species, I'd say it was impossible. But we're humans. We'll figure out a way. What happened next was the most intense period of technological development in human history. Every research facility on Earth began working on the same problem. Scientists who had never worked together before shared their data freely. Engineers pulled apart alien technology and rebuilt it in ways the original designers never intended. Captain Ben Taylor was chosen to test the first prototype ship. The UES Paradox looked normal from the outside, but inside it was filled with technology that seemed to break the laws of physics. The ship's computer screens showed readings that made no logical sense. Systems check complete, reported his science officer, Lieutenant Amy Chen. All dimensional anchors are stable. The quantum field generators are online. Captain Taylor strapped himself into his command chair. This is either going to be the greatest breakthrough in human history or the shortest test flight ever recorded. He activated the dimensional drive. Reality twisted around the ship like water going down a drain. For a moment, Captain Taylor could see multiple versions of space at the same time. Then everything stabilized. Lieutenant Chen, where are we? According to the sensors, we're in the same location as before, she replied, looking confused. But we're also somewhere else. The ship is existing in 3 different dimensions simultaneously. Can we move? Let's find out. The ship moved forward, but instead of traveling through normal space, it slipped between realities. In seconds, they traveled a distance that should have taken hours. Captain, Lieutenant Chen said excitedly, we just covered 50 light years in 30 seconds. The dimensional drive is working. But the real test came when they encountered their first Void Devourer ship. The massive black vessel appeared on their sensors, flickering between dimensions just like in the battle reports. "All stop," Captain Taylor ordered. "Let's see if they notice us." The Void Devourer ship began to move toward them. As it got closer, Captain Taylor could see why conventional weapons had failed. The ship was like a shadow with mass, existing in their reality but also somewhere else at the same time. "They're scanning us," Lieutenant Chen reported. "But I don't think they understand what they're looking at." "Neither do I," Captain Taylor admitted. "Fire a test shot. Let's see what happens." The Paradox launched a dimensional torpedo, a weapon that existed in the same multi-dimensional space as the enemy ship. For the first time since the Void Devourers had appeared, a human weapon found its target. The enemy ship shuddered and began to lose its dimensional stability. Parts of it flickered and disappeared, while other parts became solid and vulnerable. "Direct hit," Lieutenant Chen announced. "The enemy vessel is losing dimensional cohesion." Captain Taylor smiled. "Fire all weapons. Let's see how they like fighting someone who can hit back." The battle lasted only minutes. The Void Devourer ship, built to fight enemies who could only attack in one dimension, had no defense against weapons that could strike from multiple realities at once. When it was destroyed, it left behind debris that existed in several dimensions simultaneously. "This is Captain Taylor to Earth Command," he broadcast. "The test was successful. We can hurt them." The news spread across the human fleet in minutes. For the first time since the crisis began, there was hope. Admiral Wright, still commanding the UES Defiance, received the transmission while retreating from another failed Galactic Defense Force engagement. "Captain Taylor, how many ships do we have with this new technology?" "Just one so far, sir. But the engineers say they can modify our existing fleet in 48 hours. Do it. And send the technical specifications to every human ship in the Cheki fleet. We're going to need every advantage we can get." Back on Earth, the modification work began immediately. Every human ship was brought to the nearest space dock for emergency upgrades. Engineers worked around the clock, installing dimensional drives and multi-reality weapons. Dr. Stone coordinated the effort from the main control center. "Remember," he told the teams, "we're not just building new weapons. We're changing the fundamental nature of how these ships exist in space-time. One mistake could tear a hole in reality itself." Despite the dangers, the work continued. Humans had always been good at taking impossible situations and finding unexpected solutions. This was just another problem to solve, another challenge to overcome. Meanwhile, the Void Devourers continued their advance across the galaxy. But now they faced something they had never encountered before in millions of years of conquest. An enemy that could adapt faster than they could react. An enemy that refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable. An enemy that was human. 3 weeks had passed since the Zephyrians first landed on Earth. Admiral Kethvar stood in his command center reading battle reports that made no sense. His elite hunting packs were being picked apart by creatures that should have been cowering. In caves by now. The humans were doing something impossible. They were hunting the hunters. Commander Tony Martinez crouched in the ruins of what used to be a shopping mall in Los Angeles. His team consisted of 12 people, most of whom had never held a weapon before the invasion. There was Helen Davis, a school teacher who had become their best marksman. Pete Johnson, a car mechanic who could fix any captured alien equipment. Maria Santos, a nurse who kept them all alive when they got hurt. "Target approaching from the east," whispered Jake Wilson, their scout. He was just 19 years old, but he had learned to move through the rubble without making a sound. Tony peered through his binoculars. A single Zephyrian warrior was stalking through the debris, following the scent trail his team had deliberately left. The alien moved with the confidence of an apex predator, never suspecting that he was walking into a trap. "Remember," Tony whispered into his radio. "We let him get to the center of the kill zone. Helen takes the shot at his knee joint. The moment he goes down, everyone else opens fire. The Zephyrian warrior stepped into the courtyard where they had staged fake signs of human presence. Food wrappers, a dropped backpack, some clothing, all carefully placed to make it look like panicked humans had fled in a hurry. The alien sniffed the air, tasting the fear scent that humans left behind. He had done this thousands of times on dozens of worlds. Follow the scent, find the hiding prey, enjoy the hunt. His claws extended as he prepared for the kill. Helen's rifle cracked once. The bullet struck the warrior's knee joint exactly where she had aimed. The alien stumbled and roared in pain and surprise. Before he could recover, 11 other weapons opened fire from concealed positions around the courtyard. The Zephyrian warrior tried to charge toward the nearest muzzle flash, but his damaged leg collapsed under his weight. More bullets struck his armor, finding the weak spots that humans had learned to target. Within 30 seconds, the galaxy's most feared predator was dead. "Police the weapons and move out," Tony ordered. His team quickly gathered the aliens' equipment and disappeared, back into the ruins. They would be miles away before other Zephyrians arrived to investigate. This scene was playing out in every major city on Earth. Humans had learned that they couldn't face the aliens in direct combat, but they didn't need to. They had advantages that the Zephyrians couldn't counter. Sergeant Kate Williams led another hunting party through the subway tunnels beneath New York City. Her team had captured a wounded Zephyrian warrior 2 days earlier, and the interrogation had revealed crucial information about alien tactics. "They're ambush predators," Kate explained to her squad as they moved through the darkness. "They rely on surprise attacks and overwhelming force, but they expect their prey to run away after the first strike. When we don't run, they don't know what to do." The captured alien had also revealed something even more important. Zephyrian warriors were built for short, intense hunts. They had incredible burst speed and strength, but their endurance was limited. After 20 minutes of continuous fighting, they needed to rest and recover. "So we don't give them time to rest," Kate said. "We hit them, fall back, hit them again. Keep them moving, keep them fighting until they collapse from exhaustion." Dr. Alan Price had set up a makeshift laboratory in the basement of the Chicago Museum of Science. He was studying captured Zephyrian equipment and biological samples, trying to understand their weaknesses. "Look at this," he said to General Roy Edwards during their encrypted video call. "Their muscle fibers are designed for explosive power, not sustained activity. It's like comparing a cheetah to a wolf. The cheetah is faster, but the wolf can run all day." "And humans?" the general asked. "Humans are persistence hunters," Alan replied. "We evolved to chase prey animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. We're not the fastest or strongest predators, but we're the most relentless." This revelation changed everything about human tactics. Instead of trying to match alien strength, human forces began using their natural endurance advantage. They would attack alien positions, retreat when the Zephyrians counterattacked, then attack again from a different direction. Major Chris Wright was coordinating what became known as the exhaustion campaigns. His forces would engage Zephyrian patrols in running battles that lasted for hours. The aliens would win each individual engagement, but they couldn't maintain the pace. "It's like fighting ghosts," reported one captured alien during interrogation. "They attack, we chase them, they disappear, then they attack again from somewhere else. We never get time to rest or feed properly." The psychological impact on the Zephyrians was devastating. These aliens had conquered hundreds of worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that became more dangerous the longer the fight continued. Colonel Jake Stevens received reports from around the world showing the same pattern. Alien forces were consolidating into larger groups, abandoning their aggressive patrol patterns. They were starting to behave like prey animals themselves. "Sir," reported Lieutenant Amy Foster, "the aliens have stopped their night operations entirely. They're staying in their fortified positions after dark." "They're afraid," Jake realized. "They're actually afraid of us." The turning point came when Captain Nicole Turner's Special Operations team managed to capture an entire Zephyrian command post. The aliens inside were found in a state of near panic, constantly checking their sensors for human approach. "They've started calling us. Something in their language," reported the interrogation team. The closest translation is, "the ones who never stop coming." But the humans were doing more than just wearing down alien forces through attrition. They were learning and adapting with frightening speed. Every captured weapon was reverse-engineered. Every alien tactic was studied and countered. Every weakness was exploited. Corporal Steve Young had become an expert at setting traps for alien patrols. His team would leave false evidence of human activity, then wait for curious Zephyrians to investigate. The aliens' predatory instincts worked against them, making them predictable. "They can't help themselves," Steve explained to his team. "When they see signs of prey, they have to follow. It's like a cat chasing a laser pointer. They can't resist." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Colonel Sam Brooks was coordinating the defense of New York from his underground command center. His screens showed a city transformed. Humans had turned the urban environment into a vast hunting ground where they held every advantage. "The aliens control the landing zones and a few major intersections," Sam reported to his superiors. "But we control everything else. The sewers, the subway tunnels, the rooftops, the abandoned buildings. We can move anywhere we want while they're stuck in isolated strong points." The Zephyrians were experiencing something that went against every instinct they possessed. They were being hunted by their own prey. Worse, the prey was winning. Captain Emma Clark studied the tactical displays showing alien movement patterns. "They're clustering together for protection," she observed. Classic prey behavior. They don't trust their ability to survive alone anymore. On the Deathclaw, Admiral Kethvar stared at casualty reports that defied all logic. His forces had superior technology, superior individual combat ability, and numerical advantage in direct engagements, yet somehow they were losing. "How many hunting packs have we lost this week?" he asked Commander Vexthal. 17, sir. All to human ambush tactics." "And how many humans have we eliminated?" Vexthal hesitated. "Difficult to calculate, sir. For every human we kill, 2 more seem to take their place. And, sir, the humans are taking our weapons and using them against us." Kethvar's claws scraped against the metal railing. The humans were not just surviving the hunt. They were turning it around, making the Zephyrians into the hunted. It was a reversal that challenged everything the Admiral understood about predator and prey relationships. Major Angela Moore led the assault that captured the Alien Communication Center in downtown Denver. Her team moved through the building like shadows, eliminating alien defenders with cold efficiency. When she reached the command room, she found something that chilled her to the bone. The aliens had been sending regular updates to their fleet. The most recent message was still on the screen, translated by their captured communication equipment. "Request immediate reinforcements. The prey species has become something else. They are not prey anymore. They are hunters." For the first time since the invasion began, Angela smiled. The galaxy's most feared predators were finally beginning to understand what they were really facing. Humanity had revealed its true nature. They weren't prey animals that had stumbled into intelligence. They were persistence predators, evolved over millions of years to outlast and outthink any enemy. And now, they were showing the Zephyrians exactly what that meant. The massive space station hung in the darkness between the stars. It was bigger than most moons and older than many civilizations. The Galactic Council had built it thousands of years ago as a meeting place for all the intelligent species in the galaxy. Today, something important was happening, something that would change everything. Jake Sullivan floated in his small observation pod, watching the alien ships arrive. He was a human commander from Earth, and this was only his 3rd time at the Council Station. His people had just learned how to travel faster than light 5 years ago. Most of the other species had been doing it for millions of years. The Council chamber was enormous. 12,000 different species had representatives here. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of pure energy. Some were so strange that Jake could not even understand what he was looking at. The humans were still newcomers here, barely noticed by most of the older civilizations. In the center of the chamber stood Elder Vexithara. She belonged to the Kethmori Empire, one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Her body was made of living crystal that glowed with soft blue light. When she spoke, the light pulsed brighter. Every species in the chamber could understand her through their translation devices. "We are here to talk about the humans," she said. Her voice was like music, mixed with the sound of wind chimes. "The people from the planet they call Earth." Jake felt surprised. Why would such an important meeting be about his species? Humans were still learning how to build proper spaceships. They had only 12 vessels that could travel between stars. Most alien species had fleets of millions. The chamber filled with strange sounds. Some species clicked their claws, others buzzed with electrical noise. A few made sounds like whale songs. These were the alien versions of laughter and doubt. They found it funny that anyone would waste time talking about humans. Vexthara waited for the noise to stop. Then she spoke again. "My people have watched the humans for 3,000 years. We have seen what they can do. I bring you a warning that you must hear." A representative from the Hegemony Alliance stood up. His name was Zarketh, and he looked like a giant lizard covered in metal armor. His species was known for being warriors. They had conquered dozens of star systems through pure military force. "Elder Vexithara," Zarketh said, his voice deep and threatening. "These humans are barely out of their caves. They still fight wars with metal weapons and chemical explosives. Their fastest ships are slower than our cargo vessels. What could they possibly do to us?" More laughter echoed through the chamber. Jake felt his face grow red with embarrassment. It was true that human technology was primitive compared to what he saw here. The aliens had weapons that could destroy planets. They had shields that could stop anything. Some of them could live forever. But Vexithara did not laugh. Her crystal body grew brighter, and the temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. "That is exactly what my ancestors thought," she said, "and it almost destroyed us." The laughter stopped. Every representative in the chamber turned to look at the crystal being. Vexithara was older than most civilizations. Her people had been exploring space when many species were still learning to make fire. If she said something was dangerous, others listened. 3,000 years ago, Vexithara continued, the humans were even more primitive than they are now. They had just learned to work with iron metal. They lived in small tribes and fought each other with swords and spears. My people thought they would make excellent slaves. She paused and looked directly at Jake's observation pod. Even though she was far away, he felt like she was staring right into his eyes. We sent a single ship to their world, just one ship with a crew of 50 Kethmori soldiers. We had technology that seemed like magic to them. We could fly through the air. Our weapons could kill from great distances. Our armor made us nearly invincible. The humans had nothing that could hurt us. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the species that did not respect the Kethmori were listening carefully. "The first human settlement we attacked was destroyed in minutes," Vexithara said. "We took 500 prisoners to use as workers. Everything went exactly as we planned. We thought conquering their entire planet would take only a few months." She moved closer to the center of the chamber. Her light was now so bright that some species had to adjust their visual sensors. "We were wrong. The humans did something we had never seen before. Instead of giving up, they started to learn. They studied the pieces of our weapons that we left behind. They watched how our technology worked, and then they began to copy it. Representative Thess from the Science Collective made a noise like steam escaping from a pipe. His species were known as the greatest inventors in the galaxy. "Impossible," he said. "Primitive species cannot understand advanced technology. It would be like expecting a fish to build a spaceship." "That is what we thought too," Vexithara replied. But humans are not like other species. They do not accept that something is impossible just because they have never done it before. Within 1 year, they had built weapons that could hurt our soldiers. Within 2 years, they had learned to fly. The chamber erupted in noise again. This time, it was not laughter. It was confusion and disbelief. How could a primitive species learn advanced technology so quickly? Vexithara raised one crystalline arm, and the noise stopped. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what they did next. They did not just copy our technology, they made it better. Jake leaned forward in his pod. He had never heard this story before. Human history books said that aliens had never visited Earth. But maybe the history books were wrong. The humans took our energy weapons and made them more powerful, Vexithara continued. They took our flying machines and made them faster. They took our armor and made it stronger. But most importantly, they learned to work together in ways we had never imagined. She looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. My people were superior in every way. We were stronger, smarter, and had better technology. But the humans had something we did not understand. They had the ability to adapt to any situation. They could turn any disadvantage into an advantage. They could take any weapon used against them and make it their own. The chamber was so quiet that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. The war lasted 3 years, Vexithara said. In the end, only 12 Kethamori soldiers made it back to our ship. The humans had not just defeated us, they had learned everything. We knew and improved upon it. They went from being primitives with metal swords to having technology that was better than ours. Zarketh shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But that was 3,000 years ago, he said. Surely they cannot be that dangerous now. Vexithara's light pulsed in what Jake realized was the Kethmori equivalent of a smile. Representative Zarketh, in those 3,000 years, what do you think the humans have been doing?